Welcome to Wizard Team, a Black magical podcast for Black magical stories.
Hi everyone, it's Bayana, Robyn, and Porshèa embarking on a journey through the many fantasy stories written by Black people. Currently, we're reading Amari and the Night Brothers by B.B. Alston, and today we're discussing Chapter 15.
Happy Black Magical History Month. Okay,
Pew, pew, pew.
so we are on what is this now? Week 2 of Black Magical History Month. Now I
Coming
don't
up.
know. I don't know time. But we in here. It's straight February. So we out here. We magic. We black. We black. We magic. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
What did we discuss previously on Wizard Team? When we left Amari, she was not sure what to do about Magician Girl 18. I'm like, you know what? If I were you, I would
Blocker.
hit that report button.
Block
You
and
better hope
report.
there isn't a magical Elon running the other net, but block and report. And then Amari was called to the chief director's office, and we got to meet Lord Lift, Lord Kensington, Lord of the Elevators. And if you thought that I was overreacting about AI, you are now firmly on my side after meeting Lord Lift. And then we find out that Agent Fiona and Chief Director Crow want Amari to talk to Moreau. There's been a hybrid attack, which, canceled their tour and everything, and then they ended up having to take that test early. And that attack actually was pretty violent, so they are out of options, and now they're like, oh, Amari, you're our only hope. Help us, Amari, you're our only hope, in Star Wars terms. And Magnus is like, this is cute or whatever, but she is a child. And Amari said, well, that's too damn bad, Grandpa. And decided that she was going to go to the prison and talk to Moreau, because if we know anything about Amari, we know that she is trying to find out what happened to her brother, and this is a way to do that. Not only did she agree to talk to Moreau, but she also used this opportunity to kind of leverage Chief Director and Agent Fiona and Magnus to tell her more about Quentin's disappearance and why they decided not to negotiate for his release. So we got a good amount of info. I think by the end of it, Amari's like, oh, we could check off step 2 of the plan. And
Yep.
that is a big step forward. So that's where we ended. But we also had a question for you, the listener, which we've been thinking about for the last 2 episodes, which was, what do you think are the 7 great beasts? We know that, who do we know is one of the 7 great beasts? Is
The Abominable Snowman.
the Abominable Snowman. We know for sure is
That's
one
the
of the
one we know
7
for
great
sure.
beasts.
We
We
speculated.
Loch Ness Monster, aka
Yeah.
Nessie. And so we got a couple of answers from people on the interwebs and in real life. Hal H. Allen said that he thinks that one would be a thunderbird from indigenous culture, which I think is I think that's a great guess. Even the Trunchbull, Nick Fury on Twitter, and then my friend Alex, when we were at pub trivia, all said the Kraken.
I think I saw Nick's first, and as soon as they said it, I was like, duh. Like,
Duh.
Like, also, as a Game of Thrones person, you're like, that's the house sigil. Why did I not think about that?
Shoot, does that mean that there's a direwolf, or like,
Right.
I don't know. I don't think so.
I couldn't think about what the Kraken was. Like, when Alex said it, I was like, I know that name, and like, yeah, because it's like in the Pacific Ocean, right? Or we know that like 2 of them are in the ocean, in the
Or the
Atlantic Ocean.
Atlantic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Atlantic.
the Kraken
So
is like an ocean dwelling beast.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't think of, I know that name, but I can't really think of what or who the Kraken is.
Release the Kraken is the only thing I know, and I don't know what it's a
Yeah.
reference to. So
Yeah, but we got enough people saying it that I believe it.
I
You
was
know, I
hold up
go.
because I think I know what it's from, but I don't want to like
misattribute
be
it.
wrong. Yeah, but I feel like it was from. Oh no, I was definitely wrong. Apparently, it's from Clash of the Titans, which I guess I would only know if I had seen like a trailer from it. Probably, I think it was in a trailer, and that's why it's a thing because I had never saw that movie.
Clash of the Titans.
The one that
Also, my
everyone
friends.
pans.
Also, when I was around that time, actually, when I think about it, like that was like a thing that me and my friends would say. I don't remember why. I think just because it sounded like it had some
Epic.
gravitas
Yeah.
to it, you know.
Alex also said megalodon, which is like a large shark, and then a giant, and then like the giant squid is what he said, like with like a capital TH. Giant
I feel like
squid.
that's the Kraken, isn't it? Isn't the Kraken a
Is
squid?
that the
Is it
Kraken?
not?
That's what I thought.
Is that okay? So
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So he probably said, the Kraken, a giant squid, and I was like,
Oh,
the
in your
Kraken,
head, you
comma,
separated
giant
it.
squid. I was like, I don't know what the Kraken is. Okay, so and this is why you should always have someone like Alex on your pub trivia team, by the way, because they just be like knowing stuff, coming up with stuff.
Yeah.
And we also got second that day. Whoop, whoop.
Nice.
And then somebody else, we cannot remember who, and we're really sorry about that, but
Instagram is very
trash.
Yeah.
Trifling.
It's trash over there, and so you can't, for some reason, go back and like find answers. But I remembered the answer. I just can't remember who said it. So very sorry to you if you said it. We appreciate you.
We appreciate
so much
you answering the question, and we will
Instagram
figure
is
out
the
a
ghetto.
better way to save Instagram answers instead of being like, all right, we're about to record. What were the answers that we got? We're gonna do it in real time next time. And they said Bigfoot, so I don't think
which
that
could be. We had said like maybe it was 2 episodes ago we had talked about like
Sasquatch.
How the Sasquatch and Bigfoot. It wasn't totally clear of like whether they counted or not, but maybe they do. It's a great guess though. So So how many is that though? Hold up.
So we have
like
the
4.
Abominable Snowman, which we know for sure is like canon.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the Thunderbird, that's 2.
Loch Ness Monster.
Loch Ness Monster is 3. The Kraken is 4. Megalodon is 5, and Bigfoot is 6.
The Megalodon is the same thing as the Kraken.
No. Megalodon.
No, the Megalodon is a giant shark.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're right.
But the giant squid is the same thing as the Kraken.
If we have a giant shark,
wait, is Hydra a thing?
But Hydra is
No, because Hydra's not a squid.
Yeah, you're right.
because
You're
it's
right.
like
You're right.
minis
You're
are
right.
the
You're
heads.
right. You're right. You're right.
Wait, what about Cerebus?
And the Hydra seems like it would live in the ocean.
we're
Ooh, Cerebus.
Big brains. Okay, hold up. Let me write it down so that at some point,
y'all.
Okay. Sometimes you just need time to like percolate, you know?
And you need to let it sit.
Yeah.
And if we don't know, like by the end of, I guess, like the series, BB Alston, sir, we will be in your mentions. So you better know. You better have figured this out. This better not be a thing that you thought.
We gotta come to him with our theory wall, with like point out at the different arrows coming off of the.
Sir,
we need to get him on the podcast, and we need to be like, sir, please settle this for us.
And you need, like, because I always wonder about this. Like, there are like writers like George R.R. Martin, right, who have like whole backstories and shit that they're never gonna like actually like put in the story, but like they know. And then there are writers who are like, 7 great beasts, that sounds great. What a, and then they just keep typing. BB, Mr. Alston.
You're on notice. What is the answer?
I don't care which one you are at this point right now, right here, right now, you hearing this, you need to go to the drawing board and have all 7.
What if the answer is, you'll find out.
That's
Continue
true.
reading.
That's fine too.
I'm saying once we figure out, like once we get to the end of the series, if we have not had all 7 confirmed, Mr. Alston, sir, we have questions. We gonna be knocking on the door.
Nah,
we gonna need an answer to this.
We gotta make sure that we put this on a doc somewhere. That we
I just did. I added a comment to our agenda So
All right.
we'll
All right.
but also
so that we can return to for like questions
Yeah.
we need answered by the end of the
Mhm.
series, and
Yeah.
return to every
So
edition.
we should try to. I mean, we're just saying this. We should try to get him on at the end of every book and see what he'll answer and what he won't answer. See when he's like, you just gonna have to wait. And
That
then
would be.
see
I
when
mean,
he's
I wonder if
like,
he would
that'd
get
be
me down
funny.
for like a reunion special, like you know, kind of thing.
Oh my
Like, so you're
gosh.
in the hot seat.
Right.
We have some questions.
Some questions. I would like to know.
I would like to know.
Like
Ugh.
such and such from the city in the middle of nowhere says.
Mhm.
Come channel our best Andy Cohen. Okay, let's move on. But we're out here. We've got ideas. We've got ideas.
We got about 7, right? We got at least 7.
Yeah, because we had the Hydra and the Cerberus at the end. We were talking about whether or not a dragon would count, but I think maybe. Like a were-dragon
I was
is completely
thinking-
different. So
Yeah,
maybe
because I think a were-dragon is different than a
Oh my
dragon.
gosh!
Yeah.
Right. But let's sort of think about like, my thing is like, who is a well-known mythical dragon that could be that or whatever. Another thing that just came to my head was kaiju. Perhaps a kaiju in Pacific Ocean.
Okay. Mr. Alston, if you don't have 7, we got options for you, but you have to choose what the 7 are.
We can spin a wheel.
You are the last word on the subject. If you were just throwing out a number,
we can help you.
Got plans.
We can help you.
We
got backup.
here.
All right.
Okay, let's get into chapter 15. Yeah, okay. So Amari, Amari's about to go talk to Moreau. They're like, it's happening not now, but now, essentially. So she kind of assumed that they were like, you'll
get some time
soon-ish, in a bit, but they immediately have her. Yeah, they immediately have like start prepping her for the situation, and are kind of giving, they give her a list of questions that Director Van Helsing typed himself. They're saying like Moreau is going to try to mess with your head, so be careful. He'll try to distract you with his illusions. But she's completely safe because he's behind a barrier, so he can't actually like harm her. And then Fiona's like, it's important to show confidence. He'll be able to sense if you're scared. You won't be alone down there. We'll keep an eye through security cameras. And then Magnus is like, if at any point you do get scared, it's fine to leave. Like, no pressure kind of situation. I did have one question. Was like, what are the other are there other trainees in class right now while she's doing this? And like, I know it doesn't matter in the scheme of like it like does and doesn't matter for Amari because she's only here to find Quentin. So like at this point, if it's an option between doing this and like taking her class so she doesn't fail her test, like this is the more immediate kind of option, I guess. But I was just curious, like, are they just at lunch this whole time, or are they like get free time while Amari and the agents try to figure out like?
But that's also free time for them to study, which she definitely needs if it's free time,
right?
Yeah.
But again, of the two, like if I would definitely choose this. It's the most like it has the most opportunity to yield the quickest results, I guess.
I mean, we even saw like after she got her test results back, and it was like you got a 4, and they had time to go. Like she didn't go study; she went to the department to figure out. So like we already know where Amari's at, right? And I appreciate the like commitment. But I do think that like what is like we saw their schedule. I think that it's like probably they are like in class. Or not class, because it's not, I always like have to remind myself, like it's not school. They're like doing these like,
it's a camp, yeah,
it's like a camp. So they're in like these different, I mean, I guess it is like class or whatever, but like, at camp, it's like sometimes it's like, oh, it's arts and crafts time, right?
But
and you
also,
get to choose.
if you think about it, like they did cancel the rest of the tour, so maybe the kids are on the tour
Oh yeah,
because they canceled the
yeah.
tour to deal with the attack. So maybe they're just like
And
switching,
she's
you
gonna
know,
get her own personalized.
Yeah,
right?
the schedule is she's not the schedule just has marked out
A
week 1
full week.
Supernatural Investigations Tour, the
Mm,
Supernatural Knowledge Exam, Intro to Sky Sprints, and Supernatural Immersion, and then the first tryout at the end of the week.
Yeah,
So
so it's
there's no
possible
like
since the tour got like post or canceled or whatever, they just and they moved up the
yeah,
exam. Like it's possible they don't have anything like
yeah. But I
that
also
she's
think like
missing
so
necessarily.
when I went to camp, it was a completely different kind of camp. It was a Jesus church camp, but still,
Uh-oh.
there you just had like
Jesus.
you just had like activity hours, so you had to do like inactivity, but they had like
Mhm.
a menu of activities that you could do,
Right.
right? So that's how I was like kind of thinking of it is that like so if you got your test results back and they were like your magical history stinks or your knowledge of the magical beast is awful, then in
Mhm.
this, chunk of time you would choose to go brush up on that and someone else would choose to like brush up on something else. I don't know. Or go figure out their new supernatural powers. When do they do that? When do they have time for that? That seems
In their
important.
rooms. Who knows?
That seems
Here,
dangerous.
my question was, how does Agent Fiona have the nerve to tell this young lady to have confidence when she used intimidation to break her not too long ago?
Well,
So how are you helping her
Well,
build
that
her
was a
confidence?
test. It was a test.
it was a test.
It was a
Did she
she
build confidence from that?
I think she kind of did in a weird way. I still don't agree with it. But I think somehow it did help. I don't know. It
But
was
you know that
So
he's easy to break
I was just
confidence
watching,
wise.
I'm sorry, like these are pre-recorded. Y'all should know that. We have lives. We have to do these at certain times. Um, South Carolina played UConn and they won, as they should have. But
okay.
the point is that like I was seeing like the differences in like coaching styles and like Gino Oriema is a white man or whatever, and he'd be like throwing water bottles and whatnot. And Coach Don Staley doesn't have the luxury of throwing water bottles and being like held back from the referees because she's a black woman. And it's just like the differences in how you motivate and show your like um commitment to like growth or to your team or your kids or whatever. And I think I always think about this because like I was not good enough to even contemplate playing in a D1, D2, D3 program. But I always thought about like what program I would go to, and like part of me is like I would have gone to Tennessee and played for Coach Pat, but my soft ass would not have made it. Like she would have broken me and I would not have been able to put the pieces back together. But someone like Candace Parker, Shamika Holdsclaw, they were able to like do that. So I think it's
Yeah.
Amari is the kind of person, especially with her background, um, and being at like Jefferson, like she thinks about or she relates things back to like her time at Jefferson a lot, which I noticed, especially in like I think this
Mm-hmm.
chapter or last chapter, I don't know. But I think that she's the kind of person where like showing that kind of doubt or showing that kind of like tearing her down a little bit does actually like she's defiant. Like Bayana said very succinctly, Amari fights. So I think that like it did help her, you know what I mean? Whether we agree with it or not, it helped. There were better ways though.
Yeah. I don't think it was the most efficient way,
No,
or even the most like what?
humane way.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, okay, so Amari goes back onto Lord King or into Lord Kensington, which is like such a weird way to phrase this, but it is what it is. And he's actually like apologizes to her for his behavior before and is like, what you're doing is very brave.
He said, "Oh, I didn't know
So
you were about that life."
yeah, like I kind of like not that I appreciate, because like obviously, well, one, it's an elevator, so like who really cares? But two, like the idea that you misjudge someone and you like some folks be rude as hell off the top, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
relax. And so the fact that he as an elevator recognized that, and then as we see like in the rest of this chapter is actually kind of like here and like supportive of Amari, I think is interesting. And nice as far as like elevators go.
And terrifying because AI should not be supportive, should not have thoughts of
Shouldn't
their
be learning
own,
that fast.
shouldn't be learning and adapting. Good Lord.
Having recently watched Wakanda Forever, like when Queen Ramonda says like she doesn't trust the AI, like it was reminding me of like
Definitely a
Robyn
Robyn
being like,
moment. Yeah. The thing
mhm.
is I
Suck her
like
shit.
went a lot hard. I'm realizing like Robyn is very much like no, and I'm like this is cute. Like if you listen to old episodes of Wizard Team, be clear, like Agents of Shield has not been on for years at this point. Back then, I was
I
in
have
it.
not recovered.
It was different. Also, if it's like yeah, Robyn is not recovered. I think at some point I'll rewatch and then I'll be back in it. But I mean, I still don't really
I mean,
like
like
her
we were
just
saying, some things build you back stronger.
yeah.
Agents of Shield broke. I still have not watched the final season.
I don't even think I've watched the final 2 seasons.
Broke me. That one season
Nah, that
just
one season was wild.
ripped me to shreds. I might, you know
It was-
what? Let's see what we need to do to file a lawsuit. Get that
Not
Disney
a
money.
frivolous lawsuit.
Nah,
like,
man, I want a class action. I got PTSD,
Stop.
emotional
Um,
distress.
Is it PTSD or is it a good sense of survival
Nah,
for all
nah.
these
She
upcoming
said nope.
freaking designs that are coming up?
I mean, why not both? Porque los dos.
So Lord Kensington zips Amari down to a floor she's never seen before. It's really just a solid wall of black metal. Amari asks where they're going, and Lord Kensington explains that there's a number of walled-off floors in the Bureau, typically quite dangerous or secret places. Blackstone Prison is both. So this is a prison that is buried. I'm like, at this point, we must be at the center of the earth. unless they sprawl out, because I wonder like at some point when Lord Kensington like when we actually get into Blackstone Prison, he starts moving forward. So it's possible that like it's actually more spread out. You know what I mean? Like the elevators do more than just up and down, and like they go side to side, front and back, or whatever, and that it's like more spread out. So it's not. But Blackstone Prison is definitely like way deep into like. It's
Yeah, but like
definitely very
Amari,
far
I mean,
underground.
I guess magic or whatever. But Amari's not like I'm hot or I'm really
Right, or
cold.
like
I
I
think you
feel
would be
like
really
everything
hot.
is pressed in, like
Yeah,
she doesn't feel
like I
claustrophobic.
feel the pressure of like like I just feel like I don't
But
know. I need to know
again,
how this
magic,
works.
you know. I want a map,
Magic,
but I recognize that
technology.
might be asking for a lot because there's a lot going on in this place.
Yeah.
But I would like a map, just for my own. Like, I don't think it's actually necessary for the story. I
It
just
doesn't have to be like a
personally,
detailed map, just a schematic of
yeah,
just like what the layout
yeah.
What
is.
does this
Not
building look like?
exactly. And again, it's not necessary for. Sometimes you need a map for a story. You shouldn't, but sometimes you do. You don't really for this. I just like maps. So,
I just want one.
So to earn a place in Blackstone Prison, you have to be found guilty of truly vile acts, and all visitors must be approved by the chief director herself, which is why Lord Kensington is the only way in or out.
So I had a question about this. Because
Yeah.
if Lord Kensington is the only way in or out, does that mean he got like criminals writing when they get sentenced to Blackstone Prison? Do they have to write Lord Kensington to go to their cell?
On the unicorn
And then,
freaking carpet.
so then why
Probably.
the F you giving Amari so much grief about your unicorn carpet?
Well,
You got whole.
well, maybe there's a way for because he doesn't. He actually says this is why I'm the only way for you to enter. So maybe it's actually
So
more like a
visitors?
visitor's entrance versus a in or out. Like I kind of just said that, but yeah, maybe instead it's more like a visitor's entrance, or he just gives them his most like disgusting shade on the way. You know?
He puts
my
up
thing
like
was
just like grandma's plastic on his whole elevator, just plastic on the
Right.
elevator.
And he's just like,
they're like, oh no, I hope you know. Like, you know the procedures. Like, everyone in the agency is debriefed on how to treat Lord Kensington when they're transporting prisoners, and like they have to make sure they put all those procedures in place before he'll allow them on the elevator.
yeah. I'm like, if he's not just a visitor entrance, he's definitely makes us think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because
My thought was,
he was already disgusted by just a regular trainee being on board. So imagine if you were convicted of a heinous crime, like,
right.
no.
Exactly.
My thought was like him giving her this explanation now gives her like information that she knows, like where all the secret places are. Like now she knows where she to ever try to figure out like, oh, if there's somewhere I think that the Bureau may be hiding secrets, how would I be able to get there? And now she has that information.
She has to hack Lord Lift to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, interesting. That's a lot of power.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of knowledge. And her best friend is a super genius.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-oh.
Mm-hmm. So they're now entering Blackstone Prison. There's a speed limit, so he's no longer gassing. He has to abide by the rules or whatever. So yeah, so then the elevator lurches forward, like I mentioned, and then there's a gap in the metal wall that slides open. Everything goes dark as they pass through the wall. And then they're inside. So it's basically one hallway with all the like prison cells are made of glass. So Amari says that it's like those indoor exhibits at the zoo with long walls of glass cages, only 1,000 times scarier. Scary creatures slither and skulk about. Some scream constantly, while others have laughs so cold she can feel it in her bones. A pack of drooling beasts claws at the glass. Some things are so awful they're kept in complete darkness, but their fiery eyes follow me down the hallway.
I'm out.
Department of Ethics. I just want to note.
Yeah.
That if there were a Department of
it.
Ethics, would they really like? I feel like a Department of Ethics would question the efficacy of like leaving prisoners and their treatment on display for anyone who comes in or out.
I mean, no, because we have that in our world.
Do we have ethics in the United States prisons? No, we do not.
I guess. Just.
It's like, it's always hard because it's like, prisons are trash, right? So there's like, but also the way this is depicted is very much like all of these people or beasts really and like creatures are scary, but also it's like very one-sided, which again I think it makes sense to be in the case that like Amari just got here. She don't know these people, you know what I mean? Like we know for a fact that Moreau is genocidal, but we don't know what like these other creatures have done or like
we don't know that everyone down here is genocidal,
right? And we don't know what constitutes like vile acts or like even how like we don't have. It feels like we don't have enough information on like Blackstone Prison and like what. Yeah.
So this reminded me of just love Marvel talk in here, but when Tony goes to visit, is that in Civil War? Yeah. When they get caught after the airplane or airport fight and Tony goes to visit them all. That's like the Blackstone prison. I just imagine Amari as poor Amari. I imagine Amari as Tony Stark. She doesn't deserve that, but there it is. And yeah, I just think that like I don't know, like prisons are weird. And I think Moreau says this like a little bit later, so it's not like totally a spoiler, but like, you know, you'd be like, abolish all prisons, and then you see someone like Moreau and you'd be like, well maybe. Maybe not this one, you know?
It's just there does have to be another way.
There needs to be another way. Well, I also think
I
too,
think
like we've talked multiple times about like the fact that like the Bureau has so ostracized and demonized and criminalized magicians simply existing, that like what other alternatives, at least in the magician side of it, do they have? And I assume that's probably very similar to some of these other creatures, right? Who I think about this all the time, that in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, when Jessica Rabbit's like, I'm not evil, I was just drawn this way. And it's like, yeah, like sometimes it's like you don't give them, they don't have any other option, right?
Right.
Like,
And like we also don't know what pushed the Knight brothers to become who they were. Sometimes folks are just evil. So it's not to say that they weren't just out here wilding from jump because they could.
mhm.
And so like, yeah, Moreau deserves some punishment for like what he's done, but also like
Is this the best
not
way?
yeah. And also not all magicians deserve this.
Yeah.
One note that I was gonna say about the way that this layout is that for the cool factor, it does kind of give like Space Mountain, like moving through the darkness and not really being able to see how you're moving, but you're knowing that you're moving in a direction, and it's kind of freaking you out because it's just like you can't quite see, but you can see enough to be a little frightened. I liked that it was like reminiscent of something you could find in real life.
Yeah.
So Lord Kensington is like, there's no harm in covering your eyes. So that's what Amari does. And then finally they get there. She opens her eyes, looks ahead. They're in a different section of the prison. There's only one glass cage here, and inside is a gray-haired man in a rocking chair facing away from her. Lord Kensington is like, find your courage, you can do this. So now he's out here with pep talks, and he's like, all right, we got this. He's gonna be telling people. He's gonna be like, did you know I had Amari Peters? You know, I was with her. I helped in the interrogation. Don't get your feet on my carpet.
But he went from like Froggy Jeffrey from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air to like helpful Jeffrey.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you remember when Amari first gets in and he is like, I go from like transporting the Goblin King to this like trainee. Like next to me, he's like, I go from transporting Amari Peters to you. Like, how quickly, how the turntables.
Exactly. Oh, okay. Mini tangent before we go on a break. But I said like, oh, how the tables turn, and Ami was like, isn't it the turntables? Because I usually say it wrong, and I was like, no, that's a joke from The Office. It's actually wrong. It's not the right way to say it.
On purpose.
So she like miscorrected me. It was hilarious.
Hey there, Ryan Reynolds here. It's a new year, and you know what that means. No, not the diet. Resolutions. A way for us all to try and do a little bit better than we did last year. And my resolution, unlike Big Wireless, is to not be a raging and raise the price of wireless on you every chance I get. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited. See mintmobile.com for details.
Happy Black Magical History Month! We're excited to spend the month with y'all getting creative, celebrating our favorite fantasy stories, watching movies, jamming to some good music, and more.
None of this would be possible without our baddies over on Patreon. At any tier, baddies get cool perks like monthly live streams, behind the scenes, bonus content, and the satisfaction of knowing that their favorite nerds appreciate them.
Y'all are real for that. If y'all want to help us keep the magic flowing, become a baddie today at patreon.com/blacknerdscreate.
Now it's time to talk to Moreau. Things are about to get juicy. Things are about to pop off. Okay, so Amari leaves the elevator. She's on. So the floor is also black. So I feel like it kind of in my head, it like kind of probably feels like you're like walking through space in a way. Because like everything is pitch black except Moreau sitting on this thing, and like there's a glass cage around him that maybe she can see. You know what I mean? Like I don't think it's invisible, but like it's just like darkness, and then this man in a rocking chair. So
this old man who probably is casting an illusion. because they told her
Probably,
to
yeah. But he can
warn.
only cast them within the
Yeah.
within his box. So
It's giving Loki in in the first Avengers. Sorry. Okay, I'm done. Sorry.
oh yeah, sort of.
No more Marvel.
um I mean, I don't know if you can promise that, but
I can't promise that.
yeah. So Amari walks up to the glass and is like, Moreau. Suddenly, he and the chair vanish, and a different scene emerges from inside the cage, a fancy living room with plush chairs and a large fireplace. Amari blinks, and Moreau is face to face with her, so close he could reach out and grab her if not for the glass. She yelps and stumbles back because somebody just pops up in front of your face.
Mm-hmm.
If it wasn't the glass, he might have got popped in the face too. Like,
Right? Back up.
So a wide smile reaches Moreau's face. He watches her for a moment before pressing his palms against the glass. No need to be frightened. Hardly any of my power reaches beyond this cursed fishbowl. Besides, would I harm someone I've looked forward to meeting so very much? And so Amari's like, why would you care about meeting me? And then he closes his eyes, drums out a beat on the glass using the tips of his fingers, and says, "Do you hear that? It's your song, child, the magic in your blood. It sings such a strong melody." That's
So creepy.
creepy.
So this part reminds me of Mercy Thompson. There's a vampire in that story who likes to sway to the beat of her heartbeat. And she's always like, this is so creepy. Like, she'll be like tapping his foot, and she'll be like, what is that? And then she realizes that it's like in time to like her heart beating or her breath. And that's what this reminded me of. And it's just like, you ain't gotta be creepy for no reason.
Yeah,
Like, have
just
some
relax.
like social grace. You know
I mean,
what I
I
mean?
feel like Moreau, I feel like he, from jump, I think he delights in being creepy. Like, that's
I
his
think
whole
so
bag.
too, but
He's like, I
I just
wanna,
keep thinking about like when I talk about like, you know, if I'm the bureau, what is the point of ostracizing Amari when you like have this opportunity to get her on your side? And we know like Moreau obviously kind of wants her on his side, and it just doesn't seem like being obviously evil is the way to like get a young kid, unless like you know that kid is a psychopath. Like, why are you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. You've already got to have a like proclivity for creepy things
yeah.
beforehand.
Like, Amari's out here trying to be a hero, so why are you?
Here's my thing, and it goes. I get it from the whole passage, so the whole passage makes my point. But you gotta think about motives of people. This is very much my MO as a cozy mystery reader and general mystery reader. Is you always gonna look about motives, opportunities, all that kind of stuff, right?
Mhm.
And what is Moreau's motive for acting creepily to Amari in the way that he asks her questions as this goes on, and how he responds to her questions? My thought is he's clearly trying to fill her out as a person, and that's very clear in how this passage goes.
I was gonna say he also is one of those people who clearly puts like a lot of stock in power. And this is one of those things where it's like, it doesn't say. I mean, his name is Raul, but he gives me like evil white man scientist vibes. And
Well, yeah,
in
like
my
he's an island. It's
opinion,
like the island of Dr. Moreau type situation. Like he's
yeah,
doing
but like
the
in my opinion, like the like pursuit of power is something that I think like intrigues and entraps men and boys much more than like women, and especially like black women. I feel like it's like justice, you know? Like, I would just like, if I'm trying to get Amari on my side, I would like lean into like the injustice of how magicians are treated. And he kind of does that a little bit, but he's clearly like right now just like trying to scare her and project like this like all powerful, you know, super villain. And it just, to me, And I know Amari a little bit better than he does at this point. It just doesn't feel like the right tactic.
Yeah, but yeah, it's an attempt.
It is
And I
a
think that, like, I mean, I guess we'll see. We'll keep going. So he asks her if she can hear his magic as well. And she shakes her head, which means, so basically did all that to like, I guess, confirm that she doesn't have blood magic. And Moreau's like, a pity. There are blood spells that allow one to live forever. And so Amari then remembers we talked about the vampire spell. And she's like, oh, I don't want to live forever if it means I have to hurt people. It's wrong. And then Moreau says, right and wrong are relative. For instance, is it right to keep another human trapped in a cage? Of course not. And yet I doubt you'd agree with me that I should be set free. He says there's only weakness and strength. The strong have imposed their will on the weak since the beginning of time. Because your bureau is stronger on the day they raided my island, I now found myself here.
That's colonizer mentality.
It very much,
really
but
is.
also I would say, like, and because I would say, like, he is wrong, but he's also not, in terms of like how we see this play out in the real world, right? Like, the people who are, but I also feel like it's intertwined. The people who are strong are the ones who get to determine who's right and what's right and wrong. So it's not like those things are like separate. It's not like there is right and wrong or whatever, and or this or strength and weakness or whatever. But he's also twisting this to, and not who determine. I said, like, and they determine what's right and wrong in terms of like legality, right?
Yeah,
not necessarily in terms of
say,
moral,
and what goes down in history books.
Yeah, and what goes down in history, like all that kind of stuff. Like, it's not in terms of like morals and all that, but in terms of like within a society
and norms, and
if you have the power, you get to decide what is right and what's wrong, and how, and even how to go about determining that, and like what kind of rightness trumps a certain kind of wrong and vice versa. You know what I mean? Like, just thinking of like tone policing, or like the idea of like, oh, we would listen to you if you said it like this instead of this, and now all of a sudden I'm deciding to be racist again. Like, it's just a lot of different rules that are convoluted and whatever. But Moreau saying this is like, it's interesting because it's like he's trying to paint himself as like a victim in some ways, but also he's genocidal. So you're just like, I mean, sure, dude, like, you could believe this, but this isn't like, it's not gonna make me fall to your side right away, especially like after
or like your solution to this
problem is not the
it's not the way.
Yeah. Like, you don't have the answers, Sway. You ain't got the answers. Not to quote Kanye, but
who actually did come out years later and say Sway might have had the answer.
Right.
Sorry.
Oh my God.
Dangerous and, whatever, but he's also funny.
If he weren't so dangerous, he would be hilarious. Right. That's the problem.
That's the problem.
There we go. That's the problem.
Okay, so Amari is like, I have questions. She don't want to go into time to wade into morals with a genocidal villain. Like, we don't have to do all this.
No, because that would be so cute. Morals with Moreau. That's like his class that he's teaching.
Wait, no.
A little YouTube series, Morals with Moreau. And then
he's like, let's talk about strength and weakness. Okay, so Amari's like, I have questions. Moreau says, as do I, but we mustn't forget our manners. So it's just like, again, like all this
morals with Moreau.
Literally, like, relax. So they exchange names. He finds it ironic that she's Quentin's little sister. Amari's like, well, do you know where he is? He's like, of course not. I've been in this prison this whole time. And then says, so yeah, but then Amari kind of goes back and is like, I'm supposed to answer you some questions. Ask you some questions. She's looking at the paper she got from Magnus and Fiona. And again, Moreau's like, I got questions for you too. So like, what are we gonna do about this? So they decide to trade questions, which it's one of those things that, like, I feel like anytime I read like, let's trade questions, it never goes right.
Mm-mm.
But
Because power dynamics.
Literally.
It's always part of it.
And it's like power dynamics is also like Moreau is hundreds of years old. Like Amari just got here. So it's just a harder, you know what I mean? Like she just got here in the bureau and to like
advantage.
Yeah.
And to life.
And to life. Like she's new to the world in addition to this new world. Like she's only been out here 12 years. So they decide to trade questions. So Moreau says, you must promise to be truthful in your answers. There shall only be one lie between us, and I've already told it. So
I think that's
I love it, honestly.
You know what? I thought the lie was that he had nothing to do with Quentin, or he doesn't know where Quentin is. I wondered about that, but
yeah.
Yeah.
Either that or I'm trying to like sometimes I'm like, what did he even tell her? That she doesn't have blood magic. But
his real name Raul Moreau. Exactly.
It could be anything.
It could be anything.
Literally be anything.
Does she actually not possess blood magic? Can he really tell? He doesn't.
Right. How does he know?
Like,
how does he know?
So
I also sorry, this is a tangent, but it's and what do you call it? Existential tangent. I quibble with the idea that there are like different types of magic, like that you only have like a certain like that Amari is just an illusionist or whatever. That you have like one type of magic. I think there might be like things in which you're better at. I think about this like in terms of that dumb wizard boy that we don't like to talk about, but how like they're like art schools or whatever, like there are subjects that you excel in, or you just have like a capability, or they come easy to you, I guess. They come naturally or easy to you, but that doesn't mean that you don't. It doesn't mean that she doesn't have blood magic. It just means that she doesn't. It's not like instinctual for her. But if she got, if she worked with Moreau or something like that, she would be able to like understand and tap in or use her magic to perform blood magic. I guess.
Are you
an existential thing?
I can't remember if you haven't. Are you caught up on Avatar: The Last Airbender?
Oh no,
because I feel like that was one of my things when I first went into Avatar: The Last Airbender. Was that I too quibble with that thought of like you can only be segmented to one kind of a magic or whatever. So I just initially was like, it's so hard for me to get behind the idea of like there only being one person per generation who can possess all four. And I'm like, okay, sure, fine, maybe all four, but is there not someone who can possess 2 or 3 at a time? Like, how does that work? And then we get like, you're not caught up.
Wait, I'm not caught up in terms of like, I've seen all of Avatar. I haven't seen all of Korra.
I haven't seen I barely started Korra.
Okay. Well then I'm caught up like that way.
Okay. So
and like I haven't read like the Kyoshi series.
Books. Yeah. You should join us for the read if you would like.
Ooh.
We're doing it.
Okay. I'm really bad at group reads, guys. I'm not
great at it either, but somehow I'm leading it, so we'll see how that works.
All right.
That is my life. I'm like, I don't see myself as a leader, and yet here I am. Keep getting dressed into leading things. It's real weird. But yeah, the with Avatar: Last Airbender, Toph, for instance, is one of the characters who I'm like, she really does live in that lane of like, yes, she's an earthbender, but by the time we get to Legends of Korra, this is as far as I've gotten into Korra, she has like demonstrated in the series that she could do metal bending, and then by the time we're in Legends of Korra, she's an older woman, and she's done it so well that her daughter it's like become an art form now to do metal building, but it's an extension of earth building bending.
Yeah, but I always thought about that as like metal is from the earth
element. Yes,
elemental.
But like it's like, but if it's like fire just like plus earth equals
and Katara like dabbling in blood bending, which is like, I mean,
still water.
Blood still has water. Yeah, it's still like mostly water or whatever. So,
but it does have minerals in it. So that's what I'm saying, because it's still kind of 2 elements.
Ooh, do you think that an earthbender could also be a bloodbender? Some minerals.
Exactly.
These are okay. We're getting, but no, I agree with you. I think that like it's such a fine line to say that like your magic because that's what bending is too. It's magic, but like it stops right here, right? And it's like those things seem like a little bit blurry to me.
All life is gray. There's gray areas.
Yeah, there's gray areas and stuff. So I feel like it is. I think Avatar is like a great example of that. Of like I mean, this is life in general. We really like to like put things in boxes and categorize things. It makes life easier. Like I love to categorize. Like I have this, I am this, but that doesn't mean that there isn't some level of gray. And I think that as I just didn't like that they're just like, oh, you're this type of magician. When you are also 100% magicality or whatever, like, nah, girl, you got range.
And I hate that it also sidelines her because it's like you're an illusionist, and that's all like they can say for her. Like they don't give her the like range and time to like.
Yeah, this is like the first time we hear about blood magic, really. Like,
but like even like when she did the illusion at the table where she had a fire.
Yeah, we don't hear about the other kinds of magic, but then also it's like. Again, because the Bureau has so thoroughly criminalized magician kind, and like, do they even know? You know what I mean? Because they're just like immediately like magic is bad.
Like they know enough to justify why their narrative is that magic is bad.
Yeah, but it reminds me a lot of like, the fact that like as a nation we don't actually have like a centralized database for like gun violence or like police brutality, and then it's like, well, you can never really understand the scope of the problem or find the
they had to have independent people do that as projects, like to have that, which is like, but this, but there's reasons behind it, and I feel like that's the same thing we could probably say here. There's reasons why the Bureau is I'm sure the Bureau is aware that there's a network of magicians. They may not be tapped into it. Maybe they do. Maybe they have a spy. But they may, you know what I mean? They're not like, they're doing their best to make sure that it stays ostracized from the world itself, because it benefits them to not have people with this level of power, mastery over power, to be part of the world.
Ugh, hate it.
Yeah. Okay, so Amari's like, so he said like there's only been one lie. So she's like, does that mean you do know where my brother is? And Moreau goes, it means what it means. So Amari is,
he knows.
Amari
is adult thing to say to a kid.
Like, that's not fair. But Moreau is like, dude, I'm Moreau. Like, I'm not just some random dude off the street. Like, you got to come.
But also he's
harder. Like, come on, dude.
But also he's like, I never promised to be fair.
Right.
Like, I said I would be
literally
honest.
a villain. Like, please be like,
be for
real. Please be for real. So now they're gonna begin. They'll begin. So Moreau's first question is, when the day comes when you have to choose a side, and that day will come, will you join your fellow magicians or will you side with this Bureau who hates everything we are? Which is honestly,
it's a valid question, though.
It's a valid question, but also there's no way I was gonna say there's no way she would know at this point. So
motives. They question the motives.
Yep. So Amari's like, how many other magicians are there? Hundreds, I'd wager. And he says, come now, you didn't think yourself so special as that, though I'll admit you are unusually strong and so very young. Now then, for my second question. Because again, Amari tripped up. She wasted one of her questions asking about how many magicians there are. But it's also good to know, like, the Bureau has kind of been like, they've made it seem like it's only really been the Night Brothers and their apprentices. And not that there are any others in any kind of other situation. And like, maybe they are all connected to Moreau in some kind of way. That part isn't clear and hasn't been said at this point in this book, but like, it is it's like a broadening of your perspective, I guess.
You know who I think would know? I think that my friend from last episode, Sasquatch the Third, he has
the whole network.
The network. He's had enough he's helped magicians get enough hidey holes and headquarters that he probably has that whole network cornered.
He
for
does.
real estate for magicians.
Absolutely.
He probably knows
He
exactly
knows
how many magicians
not
there
only
are.
how many magicians there are, but where they hiding out at.
Their summer homes. He knows what I mean.
I was thinking about Amari thinks, and like Bayana just said, like, oh, I wasted a question. But I'm wondering, like, does the Bureau know that there's hundreds of magicians, or do they also think that it's just like Moreau and their apprentices?
Right.
Because if you think back to when she first gets her magic, I think Van Helsing is like, who gave you magic?
So I mean, I think it's possible
like,
they know,
but
right. I think it's possible they know how many there are, or at least like know that there are more than just like the ones that are on their radar or whatever.
Data models.
Right. But it's also like what they tell her. You know what I mean? Like I think the way that they
That's
tell
what
her that information, it leaves her isolated as opposed to knowing that there are hundreds of other magicians out there is like a different that could if she wasn't so focused on finding Quentin, it could mean something.
I mean, it means
not that it doesn't mean anything, but I mean, like in the scheme of things, right now, it's not like
she's not gonna leave the Bureau to go find them right now.
It's like it's a cute little like nugget of information, but her main thing is she finding her brother. But I think it means that there is a possibility that she finds community, and like they want to keep her feeling isolated and ostracized, and under the threat that the community is the Bureau, and that she is under the threat of being being like kicked out of that. And so now she's figuring out like actually there's a ton of magicians that are possibly not in the Bureau,
and also a Sasquatch who's ready to help them get their stuff where they need to go.
The hangouts. Y'all need a community center? I got y'all. Okay, so Amari clicks the glass in annoyance, and Moreau says, "Quite the temper. Don't be angry, child. Be better." Which honestly is kind of a bar.
It's
not to give
a bar, but
not
also
to give him
like...
his things, but to give him his things.
Not to give him
gas. A bar.
Look, I love me a good villain because villain characters are like, ooh. Like you gotta if you make a point, if you make multiple points, I'm like, ooh,
right?
Like, interesting. It's just interesting. That's all. Curious, you know? So Amari is like, ask your next question. Moreau asks if anyone has claimed her. Amari starts to ask what that means, but then she catches herself and just says, I don't know what you mean by that. So basically he's asking if like she's an apprentice to anyone. He says
there's masters and apprentices.
He says one to offer the power, one to receive it, one to possess the wisdom, the other to need it. Which is like
actually giving real bars.
He's giving bars, but also like it's like again, it's all these. She's coming to this world, and there's all these like rules, and like this is all very arbitrary. Like, and also again, it's like power dynamics. It's very much like setting this up in a way that benefits really the master. And it's also like, it's just a dangerous setup.
Which is why it gave me very much Sith system. Like it's the Sith system from Star Wars.
Definitely very much that.
And then he says, whoever gave you such powerful magic should have claimed you by now, unless you were born with it, which is rare, but it's possible.
She's Maybelline.
Exactly.
Maybelline.
No, go ahead.
That's like the first that we've heard about this too, though. Like, right? We don't hear about
we had
born magicians before this.
Yeah, and since like when they first were asking her, like we still didn't really understand how magicians got their magic,
right?
Because we've only seen it happen through the crystal ball, which as we were told at the time, like it's not normal.
Right. So like, and also it's the idea that like magicians stole the magic from Merlin, an elf.
Yes.
An elf. And so if you're born a magician, if that's the thing that can happen, that means you didn't steal your magic. You were like born with it. It was given to you, which also unlocks this whole new world beyond like just having like every human has the potential for magic and to varying degrees. to like, sorry, I was just thinking about like okay, this is the Marvel episode. I'm sorry. The Inhumans, right? So like it's just like in your DNA, and then it like
you drink some, take some fish oil, and then
it's the fish oil, and then all of a sudden, embiggen. So
I mean, sadly, it's also mirror in the real world. We drink our water from our city, and then suddenly I have a crippling disease. It's fantastic.
Yeah,
you just really had to go and make that dark, didn't you? But that's not something you're born with, Porshèa. That's just, I mean, you're born with poverty and like horrible EPA protections, but the idea that like it's not a matter of where who you know, or going out and like literally stealing magic from an elf, because Amari, as far as she knows, she's never even met an elf, so it's just like one of those like little tidbits that you're like, oh my god, this world is so big and complex, and I just want to dive headfirst into it.
So Amari is like, she has a lot of questions about what Moreau is telling her, but she also is trying to stay focused. So she gets back to the task at hand. She's like, basically asks like what he does know about Quentin's disappearance. So Moreau tells her that Quentin was looking into things that he shouldn't, things the Bureau would frown upon, and that he likely found something that the magicians wanted, but he won't give her more information on that. He's just like, you know far more than you did when you came down here, so there you go.
So peace out.
Take your win. This is what you're gonna get from me.
So then he explains why he wanted to meet Amari. There's a plan being carried out that's many years in the making. He says, a plan so perfect that not even my capture has prevented it from coming to pass. So we're getting into like villain-splaining now. He's been waiting to tell somebody who he actually wanted to tell. He's like, everybody else is too boring to tell my plan. When the dust settles, this wretched bureau will be destroyed, and magicians shall take their rightful place in the world. I had been content to wait out the destruction here in my cell, but then I felt your magic awaken like a clap of thunder that vibrated my very bones.
Calm down, sir. This is a Wendy's. Like, yo.
We're talking about thunderclaps and vibrating bones.
I'm 12. Your bones?
We are not in the strip club, sir.
Keep it together.
So Moreau waves his hand, and to make an illusion. It's of Amari covered in expensive jewels, shimmering with a shimmering moonstone crown on her head. He says, "You could be great, my dear, truly special. With the proper guidance, you could have anything your heart desires. Anyone who has ever wronged you would bow and scrape at your feet. You need only join us, Amari Peters. Join your fellow magicians."
Don't do it. It's a trap.
So Amari's kind of just looking, like she doesn't really know what to say to this. Then he changes the illusion again to a hulking beast, 10 feet tall, as wide as a truck, with a growling head of a tiger and a muscular fur-covered body of a man. It stalks right up to the glass, lowers its snarling jaws to flash razor-sharp teeth. A low growl rattles the cage. And so Amari's realizing like this is what hybrids look like. Because it's like this is the first time she would have seen one. And so now she's terrified. And so he's like, this is what the Bureau is up against. Like you really think you can come up against this, but you don't have to. You could just come to our side. And he's like, you used to be yours to command. Look, like you could do all this with this power. Like I'm telling you, he's trying to entice
2
her.
for 1. BOGO.
And then he's like, with magic as strong as yours, I could teach you to create your own. And so for a moment, Amari kind of thinks back to Jefferson Academy and all of her bullies, and thinking about like how she could set some hybrids on them and what that would that'll teach them or whatever. And like a part of her likes the idea. But she shakes the thoughts out of her head. She's like, what am I thinking? She turns and runs back to Lord Kensington before Moreau can mess with her head anymore. But she stops short, turns to Moreau, and says, "I'm on the Bureau side, on my brother's side, always." So for her right now, the Bureau and her brother are sort of
One.
synonymous. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's pretty clear that she doesn't have any, like, very strong ties to the Bureau, but her brother really cared about it and, like, risked his life for it. So I think that that's kind of what's keeping her. Um,
The Bureau's the only gateway to finding answers for Clinton. That's been her
right.
whole mission. This is the beginning of the book.
Right.
So it's
But
like,
also it's something that
Yeah.
means something to him too. So it's not like she's gonna just throw all of that away because she wants like revenge on her bullies, right? You know what I mean? Like, not to say that that couldn't change at some point. It's just at this point right now, her brother is her like North
Reason.
Star, I guess.
Well, like, I also, that part made me, like, wonder, because it seems so anti-Amari that I was wondering, too, like, is he able to, like, push kind of thoughts or things in her head, like,
I mean, she definitely feels a little bit like, yo, where did that come from?
where did
Not
that
that it
come
was
from,
like,
right? Because,
not that it's super explicit that he's putting things in her head, but at least like you can tell
yeah,
he's like manipulative in a way that does kind of like,
yeah,
he does kind of know how to sway people, and kind of push it.
and he
And you
did
know,
say
she's,
that his magic extends to an extent outside of the
yeah.
glass. Like he, like, yeah.
And they also
So
warned
wondering how
him.
close
They
she was
also
to
warned
his
her before she
glass.
got there that like he would try
yeah,
to, you know, sway her or
manipulate
whatever.
her or
Yeah.
sway her. Yeah, because it's just like one of those things where if you think back to, like, what we saw with Emily Grant, like, Amari's not trying to be cruel to her. She just wants to
Mm-hmm.
be left in peace. And so, like,
Mm-hmm.
that thought of teaching her bullies a lesson as opposed to, like, getting her bullies to just, like, back
Leave her
off
alone. Yeah.
it seems very, like, not in align with what we know of Amari so far.
Mm-hmm.
And so that, like, coming out as, like, kind of a desire as opposed to, like, an intrusive thought.
Mm-hmm.
I think about this a lot because I suffer from intrusive thoughts. Like, like, there's a difference between that. Like, if I had $1 million, I would do X versus, like, Y, right? And, like, some of those
Mm-hmm.
things are, I don't know, just seems very out of alignment with who Amari is to think about, like, kind of revenge in that way. Especially because, like, the first thing she says to Moreau is like, if I have to hurt people, it's not worth it. Like, she's
Yeah.
not vindictive like that. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just something that was like, I was like, how safe is this glass? And I'm glad that she was like, I'm out. Get me out of here.
Yeah. Yeah. So Moreau sighs, the illusions fade away until he's back in his rocking chair. He says, "The Bureau has long believed themselves beyond our reach, that arrogance will be their downfall. The hour draws near when we shall regain what was taken from us. Remember that I gave you a chance, little magician. In the end, we are all bound by our choices." And that's the end of the chapter. He do got bars. Like, I'm not gonna
Yeah.
begrudge
And like
him
y'all were
his
saying earlier,
wordplay.
like, does he really think that Amari is going to just like be enchanted by a man who's just creepily like throwing images up for her to kind of like help her? Like, does she like gonna get swayed by that? But also, we know this is all, he knows it's going to be recorded. She knows it's all being recorded. Did he really think she was going to just like say that she was going to ride with the magicians on a recording that the Bureau would see? Is that
Right,
really
there's
what he
that
thought?
too.
And as a super smart older gentleman, would he even want to work with a magician who wasn't savvy enough to play the game in front of cameras? Like, would he even want
Right.
that?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, part of that is like that part of that, you have to think about like part of that performance, how much of that performance is for Amari and how much of that performance is for the Bureau
Mm-hmm.
that's
Mm-hmm.
watching.
Mm-hmm.
But we've also seen with Amari, like, sometimes she doesn't, like when Dylan kind of was like, oh, I was, told his dad, like, oh, I told her to not to do her own investigating. And we are like, no, that makes sense. Like, that's what you should say to not,
Mm-hmm.
put the spotlight on them or whatever. And she was like, how dare he throw me under the bus, right? Because, again, she's 12. And we've seen Amari is not sneaky.
Mm-hmm.
She just be calling it plain. So, yeah, but I guess the thing is like, does Amari in the moment catch that that's what's happening? Or is she taking everything kind of at face value? And I think
Yeah.
maybe, when she gets some time apart and gets away from Moreau, she might be like, oh, okay, some of that was just for the Bureau and not for me. But like right now, she's like, your man's is dangerous. Which he is.
Yeah. All right. Real MVP.
It's gotta be Amari.
Yeah.
I mean, she just like goes, you know, and like they only really give her a couple of hours maybe of like prep and what to expect, and like she's going up against a 100+ centuries old supervillain. And I think does a pretty good job. She only gets tricked like once, but just that, I mean, I personally, I'm gonna just continue to, you know, judge her actions against what I think mine would have been. I was already home, so
right.
You know.
Yeah, pretty much all of the above. I think she did a really good job with like what she had, and like even her stumbles. Like she's never done that before, so
Mm-hmm. And how quickly like she caught herself immediately when she, you know, had that one stumble of giving him a question. She never did it again right away. So
same. I also made Amari my MVP.
That benched. I said Moreau. He, you know. Like, I don't really know what to say other than like he's obviously the baddie, and even though he has bars, he is very dude is evil.
Yeah. I mean, and also like his approach is very heavy-handed. You know, again, half of that is how much of that is for Amari and how much of that is for the Bureau watching, but like you could be an evil supervillain and not be a cliche, but he said, "No, let's go with the classics. Let's just, you know."
Sometimes the classics work, you know, if it ain't broke.
Yeah.
I, on the other hand, made the Department of Supernatural Investigations my bench person player. And there's so many reasons. I'm trying to keep it condensed, but also let's start from the top. Van Helsing typing up the list of questions because he's always willing to use Amari, but he's not willing to actually listen to Amari. The fact that they did not give her sufficient time to be prepared for what she would be handling. Do they handle all of their missions like this? Because their standards are very lacking, if so. The adults not giving her, like when she got into Lord Kensington, she recognized that she didn't ask enough questions about what was going on and like what she should suspect like going down, or even like what she would see or what was going to happen. They didn't even think to like bring that up to her so she could have an understanding of what she would see and perhaps what she might want to do as she's venturing to this very scary, dark chamber by herself.
That was
no
one
one
thing
backing her up, but
that's elevator. One thing I did think about. I was like, you can get someone to ride in the elevator with her.
Right.
Like they don't have to get out.
They had the elevator pack. They were like, the elevator got it.
Yep.
They'll give them.
The only support you get is from board lift.
That's like, the thing, though. Too is like
just talk to Moreau by ourselves, and we're even so scared we won't go down there and back you up. Like we won't be doing that. That's just not what we're gonna do.
And like honestly, it's one of the things like it makes sense for like the book. Just like because even what Moreau was saying about the Bureau wasn't wrong. Like we've seen all these like terrible things happen like from the Bureau, right? And so it's one of those things where it's like both sides are not great. There's no like this is the good side and this is the bad side or whatever. And like I appreciate that we get that nuance. And that at least for this moment, like Amari's just going with what's gonna like she has her own, she doesn't have to deal with the like moral whatever. And like at least not like maybe later she will, but like at this moment she has one specific goal, and so she's like using whatever she can to get to that specific place. But like being able to like, even if she doesn't completely recognize all the like machinations and like everything else that's going around her, like we can see it and it's depicted in the book. And so it's like a nice kind of like world building, like stage setting for this like kind of straightforward story, I guess.
Yes, and my final point for it all is that when I kept talking about questioning the motives of why Moreau was doing what he was doing, if you notice, not once does he wait for Amari to actually answer any questions for him. And neither Amari nor the Department of Supernatural Investigations had prepped her for like what she should say or shouldn't give him as information. And I guess they assume that she's being at the bureau, she's as a trainee, she doesn't have enough information that would be valuable to give to him. Yet he's getting valuable information from her because he's trying to test her and gauge how he can manipulate her, what she's willing to share when she's manipulated, and what is the best way to do that. So he saw her kick the glass. He saw her be very like into like what asking questions about Quentin and about magicians and that curiosity, and her natural reactions or his questions were questions, so he knows that he can dig on her curiosity and the lack of the bureau and Department of Investigation specifically giving her the information that she needs to not be curious. So I just feel like the Department of Investigations is setting Amari up to be manipulated by whomever comes across her and has the right ways to do it. They gave her the most manipulative magician possible to be in her lane to set up to manipulate her, and he's